Hello everyone, welcome to Bright Heart Mystic Oracles. Today is Saturday, August 24th, 2024, and yeah, I wanted to come on and pull some cards today. Interesting day. It's kind of late afternoon here in the Boston area where I am. And yeah, it's been an interesting day. I'm not someone who's typically really good at like just not doing very much, but I've been pretty good today about just kind of sitting around and not doing very much. It's actually been really enjoyable. Yeah. So anyway, okay. So, and as I was doing that and kind of meditating and just thinking about different things, I thought I should do a reading. I'm pulled toward the Light Seer's Tarot, which I must admit is it must be my favorite deck because I tend to use it more than any other deck. For sure. I hope everybody's having a good weekend. I hope everybody had a good week. Seems like it was a busy week. Energy-wise, it also feels very, yeah, it was kind of a weird week. Okay. There's a card. More cards, Spirit, for our message for today. What do we need to know today? Great Spirit. Angels, ancestors, ascended masters. I guess it's interesting as I'm sitting here, I'm just getting this, I'm feeling like Spirit's telling me to tell kind of a story of something that happened on Thursday. So lately I get sometimes requests to come and talk to groups or participate in events around kind of my indigenous culture and to talk about Native spirituality, and I often also talk about traditional ecological knowledge, which to me is very interconnected with spiritual things, because just from messages and things I've gotten for 20 years or more, that probably the traditional indigenous worldview and ways of doing things will be kind of the thing that saves the planet. And interestingly and wonderfully, those concepts are starting to even be more accepted in the mainstream. So that's kind of a long-winded way of saying that it's interesting how spirituality, everything's connected. And I'm not particularly attached to any kind of organized religion. And although I appreciate, and even growing up, like I actually loved going to church and stuff like that. But it's interesting, I get invited to things. And most of the stuff I do around that would be more in line with more social justice actions and people who are probably more like progressive of how they look at the world and involve people in causes and things like that. So I had been invited to come and represent a Native American viewpoint for an organization that is an interfaith organization in the Boston area. And it was so interesting. So a group reached out to them from a university in the West that has mostly Mormon students that were interested in learning how to start doing kind of interfaith work. And I think a lot of it was around like social justice and addressing social issues and stuff like that. So this panel was fascinating. First of all, the students who came, the Mormon students who came and were part of it were just amazing. And it gave me like hope in humanity and young people and the future of the world. It was great. And the other thing that was so interesting was the diversity even on the panel. There was a man who, he was an ordained Catholic priest and then eventually left the Catholic Church and became an Episcopal priest. There was a United Church of Christ representative. There was a Jewish person from a synagogue. There was a Pentecostal man who has a church and a ministry. And let's see, who am I leaving out? And I think there were a couple of others. Oh, and there was a Baha'i, a man from the Baha'i tradition speaking, and I hadn't really known much about it. Their belief system's really interesting, about how they basically believe that all of the traditions, and all of the like the spiritual leaders such as Jesus and Muhammad and Buddha, that they're all part of the universal, that they're all like sacred. That was really interesting. It really resonated with me and how I kind of view the world. So anyway, so why am I telling you this? Oh, it was that because me being representing kind of Native American culture, and I spoke about the world from the viewpoint of everything being a circle and everything being interconnected, and there not really being any hierarchy in terms of that everything's as important as everything else. Like humans aren't more important than animals or land or anything, or plants, anything like that. So it was just a really interesting. And then I was talking to some of the people after, even some of the professors, and they're like, they come from a Mormon tradition, which in some ways can be a much more conservative religion, I think. And it was funny. They were so interested in what I had to say. And then I was even telling them about kind of even like the tarot cards and stuff. So we all had this amazing conversation. It just made me feel like, everything we're all doing is really interconnected, and it's all part of like the whole divine picture. So I just, for some reason, Spirit wanted me to tell you all that. So there you go. All right. So let's see. What messages does Spirit have for us today? I feel like it's kind of lighthearted. Watch, I'll say that, and then the cards that come out will be like, not. Okay, Spirit. Oh, there's one. Okay. Okay. All right. So here's our Light Seer's message. What else? Okay, they're telling me to just start with these. Okay, let's see what we got here. We have the Wheel, the Emperor, and the Page of Wands. Well, that's interesting. So 2 major arcana. Okay. The Wheel. The Wheel, the Wheel, the Wheel. What's the message from the Wheel? Well, there's the circle of life. And I was just saying how in our indigenous traditions that everything is in a circle. And that circle could be looked at in some ways almost like a dream catcher, right? Even though the designs on this card are more geometric shaped, and that's a whole other area, sacred geometry I've been reading a lot about, which is fascinating. Oh my goodness. Okay, so, but see, those look like geometric shapes, but there's a way in which those things also look they could be like the webs in a dream catcher, and how there's all those circles in the middle of the big circle. Again, like everything's interconnected. It also makes me think of bubbles for some reason. Maybe something about, oh, interesting. I'm getting like something about, message might be for me. Something about sometimes our bubble, like bursting a bubble, the bubble can get bursted. And for me, sometimes like thinking about religion can feel like a bursting of a bubble, because it'll even be like, oh, I see and believe how everything's interconnected. And then sometimes when people are talking about like religion, especially from kind of a theological perspective, it can feel like they are bursting people's bubbles because they're wanting to make it more like concrete or something, or kind of be like, well, I'm right and you're wrong, etc. Interesting. So I feel like this big circle is protecting the smaller circles. So it's almost like the big circle is a protection of our bubbles and our, like, maybe things that we believe or want or know, even things that we know, like our inner knowing, things that we know intuitively are true, but can easily be burst because they might be like new concepts or kind of well, and here we've got a page of wands, so there you go. Like, I think of page kind of energy, that young energy where we have certain beliefs or ideas or things, and we're like, oh, I know this is true, but I don't quite feel safe necessarily sharing it with the world or putting it out there or being even too vocal about it. And I get the feeling this card is telling us that those things are being protected by this bigger circle. Wait a minute, this isn't the wheel, this is the world. Oh my gosh, isn't that funny? The whole time I've been talking, I've been thinking this card is the Wheel of Fortune, when it's actually the world. Okay, well, there you go. Funny how spirit works, isn't it? Okay, so this is even better in a way, because this is saying that, again, we're protected. Maybe like we're in the world, but not of the world in certain ways, and that really goes even with like religious things I was taught as a child. Isn't that fascinating? Okay. So yeah, there's a way in which our bubbles are being protected in the big circle of life. And those things are important. And that it's all coming together. It's all coming together in a good way. And that it's safe to be, because see how the figure inside, she's balanced in a weird way, because she's only got one foot on the circle, but yet she's not scared and she's balanced. She doesn't look like she's going to fall over. And she's also looking up to the divine. So it's like she's very protected and connected. That's kind of the message. Okay, protected and connected. That's the message I get from the World card today. Okay, then our next card is the Emperor. The Emperor. Okay, there's a lot of yellow, solar plexus, red and orange, sacral chakra, root chakra. And then interesting, that thing hanging, the thing hanging here on the wall, which looks like some kind of, almost like, what is that word, taxidermy or something, like a skull. When I first looked at it, I thought of like a butterfly, so it made me think of kind of transformation. And then interesting how where he's sitting, it's like he's sitting on the world. That's like a globe, but you can see how it's more red and orange, so it's more like the earthbound 3D kind of colors. Interesting. So I feel like it's definitely a more grounded masculine kind of energy that this is telling us. So there's something for today about a masculine and like grounded energy. But then I also see this kind of like light. This is like light coming down. But he's not that receptive to it, or he's not really noticing it that much. So it's kind of, it's like he's sitting there on the earth and very, very focused on grounded things. You can even see he has like a chess piece in his hand, right? The white chess piece here. Interesting. So, chess piece. So playing, kind of like something about playing a game and trying to figure out the different pieces, which to me can be connected to with the World card too. Like, because, it can be kind of confusing to try to figure all of these things out, even when we know, like our inner knowing, we know certain things, then trying to kind of bring that into the real world or like the everyday world. And maybe there's like the guy's, but he's also holding the chess piece and he's not really paying attention to it. And it's almost like the light that's coming down is kind of going into or through the chess piece. So it's almost like, okay, there is an opening for like your divine nature and the things that you know to kind of come in and like be made real or something. Maybe this has to do with like a new, like a project or a venture or something that someone is working on, and where they're still in that space of not being totally confident about it yet. But I feel like this is saying that, oh no, it's time, and there is an opportunity for it to become like manifested in a more real way. And then the Page of Wands is the third card. I find that interesting because it seems to have some of the colors from both of these other cards. You've got the gold and the yellow. And the Page of Wands, I typically think of the Page of Wands as messages, good news. And this person's definitely very happy. There's also